Hey everyone, and welcome back to your Inspirations Quick Travel Guide. Are you ready for another deep dive? Today we're doing something a little bit different. It's the Just Listen to Sweden edition. And it's going to be a completely audio-only experience. So you can just sit back, relax, close your eyes, and imagine you're actually in Sweden. So when you think of Sweden, what comes to mind? I'll be honest. Before we did all this research, the only things I really knew about Sweden were Vikings and meatballs.
Yeah, those are some pretty classic Swedish things. But Sweden's actually a lot more diverse than a lot of people realize.
For sure. I was really surprised to learn about all the different landscapes in Sweden. I mean, I knew there were cities, but there's also archipelagos and coastlines and even mountains.
Yeah, it's true. There's a region in the north of Sweden called Swedish Lapland, and it's covered in snow-capped mountains and beautiful lakes and forests.
You know what else I thought was really cool? The high coast. That's the area where the land is actually still rising from the sea because of something called post-glacial rebound.
Oh, yeah. Basically, the glaciers from the last ice age pushed down on the Earth's crust, and now that the ice has melted, the land is slowly springing back up.
So cool. And that's what creates all those really cool cliffs and bays and archipelagos along that coastline. Speaking of archipelagos, one of the things I learned about while researching for this episode was Kosterhavet National Park.
Ah, yes.
Sweden's very first marine national park. What's so special about Kosterhavet?
Well, it's home to all kinds of different marine life, like seals and coral reefs. You can go snorkeling and kayaking there.
Sounds beautiful. So we've talked about the natural beauty of Sweden, but what about the cities? I mean, Stockholm has to be on everyone's bucket list.
Yeah, Stockholm is definitely a must-see. It's a really historic and cultural city with beautiful architecture and tons of museums. But all of the cities in Sweden have their own unique personality.
Right. One of the sources we read for this episode describes Stockholm as historic and Gothenburg as eco-conscious. So what is it about Stockholm that makes it so special historically?
Well, for starters, it has Gamla stan, which is the old town. It's like stepping back in time, all these cobblestone streets and colorful buildings and hidden courtyards.
Oh, and there's that super narrow alley in Gamla stan too. Martin Trotzig's Grand or something like that. Apparently, it's one of the narrowest alleys in all of Europe.
Yeah, I've been there. It's pretty crazy trying to squeeze through there.
So Stockholm is all about history. What about Gothenburg? What makes it stand out?
Gothenburg is a really cool mix of history and innovation. And it has a really strong connection to the sea. Plus, it's super eco-conscious.
Right. I read that it's been named the world's most sustainable destination a bunch of times.
Yeah, they've put a lot of effort into things like public transportation and reducing their carbon footprint.
That's awesome. And I know Gothenburg is also known for its seafood.
Oh, yeah. You have to check out Feskakorka. It's the fish market, and it's housed in a building that looks like a church.
Wait, a fish market in a church?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I've heard the seafood there is amazing.
It is. You can get everything from fresh shrimp and herring to lobster and oysters.
Okay. I'm officially adding Gothenburg to my list of places to visit. So we've talked about Stockholm and Gothenburg. Are there any other cities in Sweden we should know about?
You should definitely check out Malmö. It's Sweden's third largest city, and it's known for its modern architecture and its mix of Swedish and Danish influences.
Oh, yeah. And it has the turning torso,
Oh, yeah.
the twisted skyscraper.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures of it. It's wild. So we've talked about the cities. But what about Fika? Every single source we looked at for this episode mentioned Fika.
Well, Fika is more than just a coffee break. It's like a Swedish tradition. It's a time to slow down and socialize and enjoy some pastries.
Okay, but what kind of pastries are we talking about here?
All kinds. Cinnamon buns, cardamom buns, thumbprint cookies. It's all so good.
Okay, now I'm really getting hungry. So we've got the diverse landscapes and amazing cities and the delicious Fika. But what about the Vikings? Where can we go to experience some of Sweden's rich history?
If you're interested in Vikings and medieval history, you have to visit the island of Gotland.
Gotland.
Yeah.
I've heard great things about Gotland.
It's home to Visby, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's like stepping back in time. They have all these well-preserved ruins of churches and cobblestone streets.
Wow. One of the sources we read called Visby, Scandinavia's best preserved medieval core. Okay, so Gotland is definitely on the list. But what about actual Viking settlements?
For that, you'll want to visit Birka.
Birka.
It's a Viking settlement on the island of Bjorko. You can explore reconstructed Viking houses and see all sorts of artifacts from the Viking Age.
I read that they have everything from tools and weapons to jewelry and everyday objects.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Okay, so Gotland for medieval charm and Birka for full-on Viking immersion. Oh, and one of the sources we read also mentioned the island of Öland.
Yes.
What's special about Öland?
Well, Öland is known for its beautiful landscapes and ancient ruins. It's also where the Swedish royal family has their summer residence.
Wow, a royal summer home. Sounds fancy. Okay, so before we move on to practical tips and advice, I have one more question. What about Swedish meatballs?
Oh, yeah.
Swedish meatballs are kind of a big deal, right?
They are. They're made with ground beef and pork, and they're seasoned with allspice and nutmeg. And they're usually served with creamy gravy and lingonberry sauce.
Sounds delicious. Okay, so now that we've covered all the amazing things to see and do in Sweden, let's talk about the practical stuff. You know, the things that you need to know before you actually book a trip. Like, how expensive is Sweden?
So honestly, Sweden can be a little bit pricey compared to some other European countries, but there are definitely ways to travel on a budget.
Okay, I'm all ears.
One of the best tips is to take advantage of the lunch specials. A lot of restaurants offer a Dagens rat, which is like a dish of the day at a discounted price.
Dagens rat. I love that. What other budget-friendly tips do you have?
Well, another good way to save money is to do some self-catering. Sweden has some really great grocery stores and local markets where you can find fresh ingredients at reasonable prices.
That's a good idea. I love browsing local markets when I travel. It's a great way to experience the local culture. What about transportation? Getting around can really add up, especially in a country like Sweden.
Public transportation in Sweden is really good, especially in the cities. They have an extensive network of trains, buses, and trams, so it's a good option if you want to save money.
And speaking of transportation, I have to share this funny anecdote I read about Swedish parking rules. Apparently, they're very strict about parking in Sweden, and you can get a hefty fine if you park illegally. One source even said that the parking police in Sweden are like hawks.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Swedes take their rules very seriously.
All right, so word to the wise. Be careful where you park in Sweden. So let's talk about the best time to visit Sweden. I imagine summer is the most popular time to go, right?
It is. Summer in Sweden is amazing. The days are long and sunny, and it's the perfect time to explore the outdoors. You can go swimming, hiking, kayaking, and of course, there are all the midsummer celebrations.
I've heard so much about midsummer in Sweden. What exactly is it?
It's a celebration of the summer solstice. People gather with friends and family, and they dance around a maypole and eat traditional foods. It's a really fun and festive occasion.
It's like a blast. Okay, so summer is all about sunshine and festivities.
Yeah.
But what if you're not a fan of crowds?
Well, then you might want to consider visiting during the shoulder season, like spring or autumn. You'll still have pleasant weather, but there will be fewer tourists.
What's it like in the spring?
Spring in Sweden is beautiful, everything is in bloom, and the weather is starting to warm up. It's a great time to visit the gardens and parks.
What about autumn?
Autumn is stunning. The leaves change color, and the forests are just ablaze with reds and oranges and yellows. It's a really cozy time of year.
Okay, both shoulder seasons sound lovely. But I have to admit, I'm kind of drawn to the idea of a winter wonderland adventure in Sweden.
Winter in Sweden is truly magical, especially if you head up north. You can see the northern lights, go dog sledding, snowmobiling, even stay in an ice hotel.
Wait, hold on. You can stay in an ice hotel?
Yep. There's the ice hotel in Järkesjärvi. It's rebuilt every winter using ice from the Torne River.
That's insane. So besides staying in an ice hotel, what else is there to do in Lapland during the winter?
Well, if you're a nature lover, you'll be in heaven. Lapland has tons of wilderness areas with pristine forests and mountains and lakes. You can go hiking, skiing, snowshoeing, even try ice fishing.
I don't know if I'd be very good at ice fishing.
Yeah.
But hiking through a snowy forest sounds amazing. One of the sources we read mentioned Stockholm Nature Reserve.
Ah, yes.
What's that all about?
Stockholm is home to one of the most powerful rapids in Europe. It's a really impressive sight.
I bet.
Yeah. And there are walkways and viewing platforms where you can safely get up close to the rapids.
Okay, so Lapland sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But I also have to admit that I'm a sucker for cute seaside towns.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of the best coastal towns in Sweden?
If you're looking for charm, you can't go wrong with Marstrand. It's a beautiful little island town that's known for its sailing culture and its vibrant harbor. They also have Karlstad Fortress.
Karlstad Fortress?
Yeah, it's the 17th century fortress that was built to defend the Swedish coast.
That sounds cool. What about the town itself?
It's a really cute town with cobblestone streets and colorful houses. There are lots of shops and restaurants, and you can just relax and enjoy the island vibes.
Okay, so we've got Lapland for winter adventures and Marstrand for coastal charm. But we can't talk about the Swedish coast without mentioning the archipelagos, right?
Definitely not. Both Stockholm and Gothenburg have amazing archipelagos with thousands of islands.
So what's the difference between the two archipelagos?
Well, the Stockholm archipelago is much larger and more diverse. It has over 30,000 islands, so there's something for everyone. The Gothenburg archipelago is a bit smaller and more laid back. It's a great place to relax and enjoy the slower pace of life.
Okay, so Stockholm for grandeur and variety, and Gothenburg for charm and relaxation. I think I could easily spend a week exploring both archipelagos. Oh, one more thing about the coast. We talked about the high coast earlier.
Yes.
Can you remind me what's so special about that region?
The high coast is a unique and stunning region where the land is still rising from the sea after the last ice age. This creates a really dramatic landscape with towering cliffs and deep forests and sparkling lakes.
Right. It's that combination of geology and natural beauty that makes Sweden so special. Now, I know we've talked a lot about natural landscapes, but what about the Swedish countryside? I'm picturing rolling hills and red farmhouses and maybe some cows grazing in a meadow.
You're not far off. If you want to experience the Swedish countryside, you should visit Österlen.
Österlen.
It's a region in southern Sweden that's known for its idyllic landscapes and charming villages. It also has a really great food scene.
Oh, a thriving food scene.
Yeah, they have lots of farm-to-table restaurants and local markets and cozy cafes, and they're known for their apples.
Apples?
Yes, they have all these apple orchards, and you can find all sorts of apple-based products.
Like what?
Cider apple pies, all that good stuff.
Okay, so Österlen has beaches and national parks and delicious food. Sounds like the perfect getaway. What other countryside adventures are there in Sweden?
Well, for something a little bit different, you could visit Öland.
Öland.
It's a megalithic monument that's made up of 59 large stones arranged in the shape of a ship.
Wow, a stone ship.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Do we know who built it?
We don't know for sure, but it's thought to date back to the Viking Age.
Fascinating. Okay, one last stop on our countryside tour. Gästed. What can you tell us about Gästed?
Gästed is a charming medieval town in southern Sweden that's known for its well-preserved architecture. It's like stepping back in time.
And I read that it's a popular filming location.
It is. Several movies and TV shows have been filmed there. You can even take tours of the film studio.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in our exploration of Sweden's best places to visit. We've journeyed from the winter wonderland of Lapland to the sunny beaches of Österlen. We've explored charming towns, historic cities, and even a Viking-era stone ship.
It's amazing how much diversity Sweden has to offer.
I know, right? And we've only just scratched the surface. But I think it's time to shift gears a little bit.
Yep.
And talk about what makes Sweden so special. You know, that unique essence that sets it apart from other countries.
Yeah, so we've talked about all the amazing places you can visit in Sweden. But what is it that makes Sweden so special? What is it about the country that really sets it apart?
It's a good question, and one that I kept coming back to as I was doing research for this episode. You know, there's something about Sweden that's just so appealing. It's hard to put your finger on it, but it's definitely there.
Yeah. I know what you mean. For me, it's the Swedish way of life. There's this really nice balance between work and leisure and a deep appreciation for nature and a strong sense of community.
You know, a lot of the sources we read talked about the concept of lagom, which is all about finding that balance, that just right approach to life.
Exactly. It's about not doing too much or too little. It's about finding that sweet spot.
I love that. So what are some examples of lagom in everyday Swedish life?
Well, Fika is a good example. It's not just about grabbing a coffee and running. It's about taking a break from your day, slowing down, and enjoying a moment with friends or colleagues.
Yeah, it's about savoring the little things.
Exactly.
And another thing that I think really embodies the Swedish way of life is their love of nature.
Oh, yeah. Swedes love spending time outdoors, whether it's hiking in the forest, swimming in a lake, or just having a picnic in a park.
It's about connecting with nature and appreciating its beauty.
For sure.
And speaking of beauty, we have to talk about Swedish design.
Ah, yes.
Swedish design is world-renowned for its simplicity, functionality, and elegance.
It's true. Swedish design is all about creating things that are both beautiful and practical. It's about clean lines, natural materials, and a sense of timelessness.
I love that. And it's not just limited to furniture and home decor.
Right.
You see it in everything from fashion to architecture.
Definitely.
So if I had to sum up Sweden in a few words, I would say it's a country of breathtaking natural beauty, innovative design, rich history, and a culture that values balance, connection, and sustainability.
I think that's a pretty accurate description.
Yeah. And another thing that I noticed as I was reading all these sources is that the Swedish people seem really warm and welcoming.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They might seem a little bit reserved at first, but once you get to know them, they're really friendly and helpful.
Do you have any tips for interacting with locals?
Well, one thing is to not be afraid to strike up a conversation. Swedes are generally pretty open and willing to chat, especially if you show a genuine interest in their culture.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into all things Sweden, I'm curious, what's one thing that you hope our listeners take away from this episode?
I hope they come away with a sense of wonder and curiosity about Sweden, and I hope they're inspired to learn more about this amazing country and maybe even plan a trip to visit someday.
Me too. And if you're looking for more travel inspiration, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Your Inspiration's Quick Travel Guide. We have tons of videos and tips to help you plan your next adventure. Thanks for listening and happy travels.